Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios here in Wisteria College. Now it's become official. I'm not even going to mention that it's actually Wisteria Cottage. And we're going deeper now into the third canto. And we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. And would like to thank all of you who are regular attenders. And please remember always, caring means sharing, and sharing means caring. So care for others. This is what the world needs, to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And when we hear every day like this, Prabhupada's purports, direct, for an hour a day at least, this is the taking us to the goal of life. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna. We're going to hear, according to our vow, the Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram, Srila Sanatana Goswami's wonderful, deep, philosophical, and nectarian glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun, risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshak Sharayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Mad Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya, Madananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, sadhutat dayin, adini chochatakara, hanamunchagadachin mam, premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, here we are, Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 1, Creation of the Universal Form. Maitreya Muni, having heard directly from Krishna, is now going to explain and answer Vidura's questions. Text 1. Rishi Maitreya said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies, such as the Mahatattva. Now you remember, he's glanced, time has gone in, demigods are ready, the main ones, but nothing's happening. So the demigods are saying, sorry, we need a little help over here. Right? Purport. There is nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. All the potencies are there in a dormant stage. But unless they are combined by the will of the Lord, nothing can progress. The suspended progressive work of creation can only be revived by the direction of the Lord. Text 2. The Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. Purport. The ingredients of matter are counted as 23: the total material energy, false ego, sound, touch, form, taste, smell, earth, water, fire, air, sky, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, hands, feet, evacuating organ, genitals, voice, and mind. All are combined together by the influence of time and are again dissolved in the course of time. Time, therefore, is the energy of the Lord and acts in her own way by the direction of the Lord. This energy is called Kali, and it is presented by the dark, destructive goddess, generally worshipped by persons influenced by the motive darkness or ignorance in material existence. Now this Kali is different than Kali Yuga. The word Kali and Kali are different. In a Vedic hymn, this process is described as Mula Prakriti Avrikritir Mahad Adya Prakriti Vikritaya Sapta Shodashakas Tuvikaro Na Prakritir Na Vikriti Purushaha. The energy which acts as the material nature is a combination of the 23 ingredients, is not the final source of creation. I'll read that again. The energy which acts as the material nature in a combination of the 23 ingredients is not the final source of creation. The Lord enters into the elements and applies his energy called Kali. In other Vedic scriptures, the same principle is accepted. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Ekopyasau rachajitum jagadanda kotim yachchaktirasti jagadanda chayat yadantaha andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord, Govinda, who is the original personality of Godhead. By his partial, plenary expansion, Mahavishnu, he enters into material nature, and then into each and every universe as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and then as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu into all the elements, including every atom of matter. Such manifestations of cosmic creation are innumerable, both in the universes and in the individual atoms. Similarly, this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Atava bahunaitena kim gyatena tavarjana vishtabhyaham idam kritsnam ekankshena stito jigat. O Arjuna, there is no necessity of your knowing about my innumerable energies, which act in various ways. I enter into the material creation by my partial, plenary expansion, Paramatma, or the Supersoul, in all the universes, and in all the elements thereof, and thus the work of creation goes on. The wonderful activities of the material nature are due to Lord Krishna, and thus he is the final cause, or the ultimate cause of all causes. Text 3. Thus, when the personality of Godhead entered into the elements by his energy, all the living entities were enlivened into different activities, just as one is engaged in his work after awakening from sleep. Purport. Every individual soul remains unconscious after the dissolution of the creation, and thus enters into the Lord with his material energy. These individual living entities are conditioned souls everlastingly, but in each and every material creation, they are given a chance to liberate themselves and become free souls. They are all given a chance to take advantage of the Vedic wisdom and find out what is their relationship with the Supreme Lord, how they can be liberated, and what the ultimate profit is in such liberation. By properly studying the Vedas, one becomes conscious of his position and thus takes to the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, and is gradually promoted to the spiritual sky. The individual souls in the material world engage in different activities according to their past unfulfilled desires. After the dissolution of a particular body, the individual soul forgets everything. But the all-merciful Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart as the witness, the supersoul, awakens him and reminds him of his past unfulfilled desires. And thus he begins to act accordingly in his next life. This unseen guidance is described as fate, and a sensible man can understand that this continues his material bondage in the three modes of nature. The unconscious, sleeping stage of the living entity, just after the partial or total dissolution of the creation, is wrongly accepted as the final stage of life by some less intelligent philosophers. After the dissolution of the material body, a living entity remains unconscious for only a few months. And after the total dissolution of the material creation, he remains unconscious for many millions of years. But when the creation is again revived, he is awakened to his work by the Lord. The living entity is eternal, and his wakeful state of his consciousness manifested by activities is his natural condition of life. He cannot stop acting while awake, and thus he acts according to his diverse desires. When he is trained to employ his desires in the transcendental service of the Lord, his life becomes perfect, and he is promoted to the spiritual sky to enjoy eternal awakened life. Text 4. When the 23 principal elements were awakened to action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Vishwarupa body of the Lord, came into existence. Purport. The Virata Rupa, or Vishwarupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalist, is not an eternal form of the Lord. It is manifested by the supreme will of the Lord after the ingredients of material creation are awakened to action. Lord Krishna exhibited this Virat, or Vishwarupa, to Arjuna just to convince the impersonalists that he is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna exhibited the Virat Rupa. It is not that Krishna was exhibited by the Virat Rupa. The Virat Rupa is not, therefore, an eternal form of the Lord, exhibited in the spiritual sky. It is a material manifestation of the Lord. The Archa Vigraha, or the worshipable deity in the temple, is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. But in spite of their material touch, such forms of the Lord as the Virat and Archa are all non-different from his eternal form as Lord Krishna. Text 5. As the Lord, in his plenary portion, entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all moving and non-moving creations rest. The elements of cosmic creation are all matter and have no potency to increase in volume unless entered into by the Lord in his plenary portion. This means that matter does not increase or decrease unless it is spiritually touched. Matter is a product of spirit and increases only by the touch of spirit. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself, as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. As long as spirit is within matter, matter can increase as needed. But without the spirit, matter stops increasing. For example, as long as there is spiritual consciousness within the material body of the living entity, the body increases to the required size, but a dead material body, which has no spiritual consciousness, stops increasing. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, importance is given to the spiritual consciousness, not the body. The entire cosmic body increased by the same process that we experience in our small bodies. One should not, however, foolishly think that the individual infinitesimal soul is the cause of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The universal form is called the Virat Rupa because the Supreme Lord is within it in his plenary portion. Text 6. The gigantic Virat Rupa, Purusha, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Purport. After the Lord entered each and every universe as the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, half the universe was filled with water. The cosmic manifestation of the planetary systems, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only 1/2 of the complete universe. Before the manifestation takes place, and after the entrance of Vishnu within the universe, there is a period of 1,000 celestial years. All the living entities injected within the womb of the Mahatattva are divided in all the universes with the incarnation of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And all of them lie down within the Lord until Brahma is born. So this is still the Sarga. Everything that happens before Brahma, and then Brahma manifests everything. So everything's there, but it's all unmanifested. And then it comes from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu through the tube, through the pipe, into the lotus flower, and then Brahma is born, and then cosmic manifestation happens. That's the Visarga, after Brahma is created. Exactly like pregnancy. It's the same. It said it. Oh, by the way, the princess is pregnant now, so we can all wait for the universal form to come out. After the Lord entered each and every universe as the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, half the universe was filled with water. The cosmic manifestation of the planetary systems, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only 1/2 of the complete universe. Before the universe manifestation takes place, and after the entrance of Vishnu within the universe, there is a period of 1,000 celestial years. All the living entities injected within the womb of the Mahatattva are divided in all the universes with the incarnation of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him all other demigods and living creatures are born. Manu is the original father of mankind, and therefore, in Sanskrit, mankind is called Manusha. Human beings with different bodily qualities are distributed throughout the various planetary systems. So here, it's very clear. Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him, all of the demigods and living creatures are born. So those demigods that we already heard about that are saying to the Lord, okay, something else is needed here, we can't do anything more. Then the Lord entered, right? And now it says, from him, from Brahma, all the demigods are born. So they're already there, created by the Lord, in an unmanifest state, before Brahma. That's another proof that that was a sarga, not the visarga. Okay, text 7. The total energy of the Mahatattva in the form of the gigantic Virat Rupa divided himself by himself into the consciousness of the living entities, the life of activity and self-identification, which are subdivided into 1, 10, and 3, respectively. Purport. Consciousness is the sign of the living entity or the soul. The existence of the soul is manifest in the form of consciousness, called Jnana Shakti. The total consciousness is that of the gigantic Virat Rupa, and the same consciousness is exhibited in individual persons. The activity of consciousness is performed through the air of life, which is of 10 divisions. The airs of life are called prana, apana, udana, vyana, and samana, and are also differently qualified as naga, kurma, krikara, devadatta, and dhananjaya. The consciousness of the soul becomes polluted by the material atmosphere, and thus various activities are exhibited in the false ego of bodily identification. These various activities are described in the Bhagavad Gita as bahushaka, yanantascha, buddhayo, vyabhisayinam. 241. The conditioned soul is bewildered into performing various activities for want of pure consciousness. In pure consciousness, the activity is one. The consciousness of the individual soul becomes one with the superconsciousness when there is complete synthesis between the two. In other words, when the desire is the same. Oh, what did Jesus say? Not my, but thy will, O Lord. Same idea. The monist believes that there is only one consciousness, whereas the sattvatas, or the devotees, believe that although there is undoubtedly one consciousness, they are one because there is agreement. The individual consciousness is advised to dovetail with the Supreme Consciousness as instructed by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. The individual consciousness, Arjuna, is advised to dovetail with the Supreme Consciousness and thus maintain his conscious purity. It is foolish to try to stop the activities of consciousness, but they can be purified when they are dovetailed with the Supreme. This consciousness is divided into 3 modes of self-identification according to the proportion of purity. Adhyatmika, or self-identification with the body and mind. Adhibautika, or self-identification with the material products. And Adhidaivaka, or self-identification as a servant of the Lord. Of the 3, Adhidaivaka, self-identification, is the beginning of purity of consciousness in pursuance of the desire of the Lord. Text 8. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Supersoul. That universal form is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. And self there is capitalized. Purport. The Supreme Lord expands himself in 2 ways, by personal plenary expansions and separated minute expansions. The personal plenary expansions are Vishnu Tattvas, and the separated expansions are living entities. Since the living entities are very small, they are sometimes described as the marginal energy of the Lord. But the mystic yogis consider the living entities and the Supersoul, Paramatma, to be one and the same. It is, however, a minor point of controversy After all, everything created rests on the gigantic Virat Rupa, or universal form of the Lord. Text 9. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1, in the sense that he is the body, mind, and senses. He is the dynamic force for all movements by 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where the life energy is generated. Purport. I'll read that again. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1, in the sense that he is the body, mind, and senses. He is the dynamic force for all movements by 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where the life energy is generated. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the 8 elements, earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego, are all products of the Lord's inferior energy, whereas the living entities who were seen to utilize the inferior energy originally belong to the superior energy, the internal potency of the Lord. The 8 inferior energies work grossly and subtly, whereas the superior energy works as the central generating force. This is experienced in the human body. The gross elements, namely earth, etc., form the external gross body and are like a coat, whereas the subtle mind and false ego act like the inner clothing of the body. It's interesting how here it says that the Lord, the living entities, originally belonged to the superior energy, the internal potency of the Lord. Very interesting. The movements of the body are first generated from the heart, and all the activities of the body are made possible by the senses, powered by the 10 kinds of air within the body. The 10 kinds of air are described as follows. The main air passing through the nose in breathing is called prana. The air which passes through the rectum as evacuated bodily air is called apana. The air which adjusts the foodstuffs within the stomach and which sometimes sounds as belching is called samana. The air which passes through the throat and the stoppage of which constitutes suffocation is called the udana air. And the total air, which circulates throughout the entire body, is called Vyana air. Subtler than these 5 airs, there are others also. That which facilitates the opening of the eyes, mouth, etc. is called the Naga air. The air which increases appetite is called the Krikara air. The air which helps contraction is called the Kurma air. The air which helps relaxation by opening the mouth wide and yawning is called the Devadatta air, and the air which helps sustenance is called the Dhananjaya air. All these airs are generated from the center of the heart, which is one only. This central energy is the superior energy of the Lord, who is seated within the heart along with the soul, who acts under the guidance of the Lord. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Sarvasya chaham, riti sanavishto, matak smritir jnanam aponam cha, vidaischa sarvar aham eva vidyo, vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. The complete central force is generated from the heart by the Lord, who is seated there, and who helps the conditioned soul in remembering and forgetting. The conditioned state is due to the soul's forgetfulness of his relationship of subordination to the Lord. One who wants to continue to forget the Lord is helped by the Lord to forget him, birth after birth. But one who remembers him by dint of association with a devotee of the Lord is helped to remember him more and more. Thus the conditioned soul can ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. This process of transcendental help by the Lord is described in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Tesham sarati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. The Buddhi Yoga process of self-realization, with intelligence transcendental to the mind, devotional service, can alone elevate one from the conditioned state of material entanglement in the cosmic construction. The conditioned state of a living entity is like that of a person who is within the depths of a huge mechanical arrangement. The mental speculators can reach the point of Buddhi Yoga after many, many lifetimes of speculation, but the intelligent person who begins from the platform of intelligence above the mind makes rapid progress in self-realization. Because the Buddhi Yoga process entails no fear of deterioration or retrogression at any time, it is the guaranteed path to self-realization, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 2:40. The mental speculators cannot understand the following example from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Two birds, the soul and the supersoul, are sitting in the tree of the body. The individual soul eats the fruit of the tree, while the other bird does not eat the fruit, but only observes the activities of the eating bird. The witnessing bird, without attachment, helps the fruit-eating bird perform fruitive activities. One who cannot understand this difference between the soul and the supersoul, or the living entity and God, is certainly still in the entanglement of the cosmic machinery, and thus must still await the time when he will be free from bondage. The cosmic machinery. Text 10. The Supreme Lord is the supersoul of all the demigods, entrusted with the task of the cosmic manifestation. Being thus prayed to by the demigods, he thought to himself, and thus manifested the gigantic form for their understanding. Purport. The impersonalists are captivated by the gigantic universal form of the Supreme. They think that the controller behind this gigantic manifestation is imaginary. Intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. I'll repeat that again. This is very important. The impersonalists are captivated by the gigantic universal form of the Supreme. They think that the controller behind this gigantic manifestation is imaginary. Intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. For example, the individual human body does not develop from the womb of the mother independently, but because of the living entity, the soul is within the body. Without the living entity, a material body cannot automatically take shape or develop. When any material object displays development, it must be understood that there is a spiritual soul within the manifestation. The gigantic universe has developed gradually, just as the body of a child develops. The conception that the transcendence enters within the universe is therefore logical. As the materialists cannot find the soul and the supersoul within the heart, similarly, for want of sufficient knowledge, they cannot see that the Supreme Soul is the cause of the universe. The Lord is therefore described in the Vedic language as Avan Manasa Gochara, beyond the conception of words and mind. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, the mental speculators try to bring the Supreme within the purview of words and minds. But the Lord refuses to be so intelligible. The speculator has no adequate words or mind to gauge the infinity of the Lord. The Lord is called Adhoksaja, or the person who is beyond perception of by the blunt, limited potency of our senses. One cannot perceive the transcendental name or form of the Lord by mental speculation. The mundane PhDs are completely unable to understand the Supreme with their limited senses. Such attempts by the PhDs are compared to the philosophy of the frog in the well. But the frog in the well was informed of the gigantic Pacific Ocean, and he began to puff himself up in order to understand or measure the length and breadth of the Pacific Ocean. Ultimately, the frog burst and died. The title PhD can also be interpreted as plow department. This will go into our next document. This is it. It's right there. It's right there. A title meant for the tillers in the paddy field. The attempt of the tillers in the paddy field to understand the cosmic manifestation and the cause behind such wonderful work can be compared to the endeavor of the frog in the well to calculate the measurement of the Pacific Ocean. The Lord will reveal himself only to a person who is submissive and who engages in his transcendental loving service. The demigods controlling the elements and ingredients of universal affairs prayed to the Lord for guidance, and thus he manifested his gigantic form, as he did at the request of Arjuna. What a purport. My God. Let that one settle in there for a few minutes, before we move on. You relish it. Taste it a little bit. Like one of Shamagori's cakes, you got to just kind of let it sit, relish it for a while before we go on to something else. Okay, text 11. Maitreya said, "You may now hear from me how the Supreme Lord separated himself into the diverse forms of the demigods after the manifestation of the gigantic universal form." Purport. The demigods are separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, as are all other living entities. The only difference between demigods and ordinary living entities is that when living entities are rich in pious acts of devotional service to the Lord, but still desire to lord it over the material energy, they are promoted to the post of demigods. Be careful. Who are entrusted by the Lord with executing the management of the universal affairs. What to speak of a temple? Text 12. Agni, or heat, separated from his mouth. Then all the directors of material affairs entered into his mouth in their respective positions. By that energy, the living entity expresses himself in words. Purport. The mouth of the gigantic universal form of the Lord is the source of the speaking power. The director of the fire element is that power's controlling deity, or the Adidaiva. The speeches delivered are Adhyatma, or bodily functions, and the subject matter of the speeches is a material production, or the Adibhuta principle. This is deep. This is deep. So that means with every, active organ, it's got a Adhyatma and Adidaiva, Adhyatma, and Adibhuta principle. And here, the director of the fire element is the power. The power means the power to speak. fire element, the director of the fire element is the powers controlling deity, or the Adidaiva. The speeches delivered, the sound, the actual speeches, are Adhyatma, or bodily functions, and the subject matter of the speeches is the material production, or the Adibhuta principle. So that's going to be like that for every one of them, for every one of the functions. 13. When the palette of the gigantic form was separately manifested, Varuna, the director of water in the planetary systems, entered therein, and thus the living entity has the facility to taste everything with his tongue. Text 14. When the Lord's two nostrils separately manifested themselves, the dual Ashwini Kumaras entered them in their proper positions. And because of this, the living entities can smell the aromas of everything. Text 15. Thereafter, the two eyes of the gigantic form of the Lord were separately manifested. The sun, the director of light, entered them with the partial representation of eyesight, and thus the living entities can have vision of forms. 16. When there was a manifestation of skin separated from the gigantic form, Anila, the deity directing the wind, entered with partial touch, and thus the living entities can realize tactile knowledge. 17. When the ears of the gigantic form become manifested, all the controlling deities of the directions entered into them with the hearing principles, by which all living entities hear and take advantage of sound. Purport: the ear is the most important instrument in the body of living entity. Sound is the most important medium for carrying the message of distant and unknown things. The perfection of all sound or knowledge enters through the ear and makes one's life perfect. The entire Vedic system of knowledge is received by oral reception only, and thus sound is the most important source of knowledge. Text 18. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensations and their different parts entered into it, and thus the living entities feel itching and happiness due to touch. Purport: for sense perception there are two principal items, touch and itching, and both of them are controlled by the skin and hairs in the body. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, the controlling deity of touch is the air passing within the body, and the controlling deity of the hairs in the body is Oshadya. For the skin, the object of perception is touch, and for the hairs in the body, the object of perception is itching. Text 19. When the genitals of the gigantic form separately become manifest, then Prajapati, the original living creature, entered into them with his partial semen, and thus the living entities can enjoy sex pleasure. Text 20. The evacuating channel separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with partial organs of evacuation. Thus the living entities are able to pass stool and urine. 21. Thereafter, when the hands of the gigantic form separately became manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them, and thus the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood. Text 22. Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and the demigod named Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination. 23. When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with the partial power of understanding, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities. Text 24. After that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus, the living entity can conduct his mental speculations. 25. Thereafter, the materialistic ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the controller of false ego, with his own partial activities, by which the living entity performs his objective actions. Purport. The false ego of materialistic identity is controlled by the demigod Rudra, an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Rudra is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord who controls the mode of ignorance within material nature. The activities of the false ego are based on the objective of the body and mind. Most persons conducted by the false ego are controlled by Lord Shiva. When one reaches a finer version of ignorance, he falsely thinks of himself as the Supreme Lord. That egoistic conviction of the conditioned soul is the last snare of the illusory energy which controls the entire material world. Text 26. Thereafter, when the consciousness of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, the total energy, the Mahat Tattva, entered within the gigantic form's conscious part. Thus, the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge. 27. Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested. From his legs, the earthly planets were manifested, and from his abdomen, the sky was manifested. Within these places, the demigods and others were then manifested in terms of the modes of material nature. 28. The demigods, qualified by the super excellent quality of the mode of goodness, are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, because of their nature in the mode of passion, live on the earth in the company of their subordinates. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are highly developed in the mode of goodness are promoted to the higher heavenly planetary system, and that those who are overpowered by the mode of passion are situated in the middle planetary systems, the Earth and similar planets, and that those who are surcharged with the mode of ignorance are degraded to the lower planetary systems or to the animal kingdom. The demigods are highly developed in the mode of goodness, and thus they are situated in the heavenly planets, below human beings or the animals, some of whom mingle with human society, cows, horses, dogs, and so on. Buddy, are habituated to living under the protection of human beings. And some of them, like Buddy, think they're human beings. No. The word atyantikena, extreme, is very significant in this verse. By extreme development of the mode of goodness in the material nature, one can become situated in the heavenly planets. But by excessive development in the mode of passion or ignorance, the human being indulges in killing animals who are meant to be protected by mankind. Persons who indulge in unnecessary animal killing have excessively developed the modes of passion and ignorance, and have no hope of advancing to the mode of goodness. They are destined to be degraded to lower statuses of life. The planetary systems are calculated as upper and lower in terms of the classes of living entities who live there. Text 29. Living entities who are associates of Rudra have developed the mode of ignorance, the third mode of material nature. They are situated in the sky between the earthly planets and the heavenly planets. Purport. The middle portion of the sky is called Bhuvar Loka, as confirmed by both Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti and Srila Jiva Goswami. In the Bhagavad Gita it is stated that those who develop the mode of passion are situated in the middle region. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness are promoted to the regions of the demigods. Those who are situated in the mode of passion are placed in human society, and those who are situated in the mode of ignorance are placed in the society of animals or ghosts. There are no contradictions in this conclusion. The numerous living entities distributed all over the universe in different planets are so situated in terms of their own qualities in the modes of material nature. Text 30. O chief of the Kuru dynasty, the Vedic wisdom became manifested from the mouth of the Bharat, the universal form. Those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge are called Brahmanas, and they are the natural teachers and spiritual masters of all the orders of society. Purport. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, the four orders of human society developed with the order of the body of the gigantic form. The bodily divisions are the mouth, arms, waist, and legs. Those who are situated on the mouth are called Brahmanas. Those who are situated on the arms are called Kshatriyas. Those who are situated on the waist are called Vaishyas. And those who are situated on the legs are called Shudras. Everyone is situated in the body of the Supreme in his gigantic Vishwarupa form. In terms of the four orders, therefore, no caste is to be considered degraded because of being situated on a particular part of the body. In our own bodies, we do not show any actual difference in our treatment towards the hands or legs. Each and every part of the body is important, although the mouth is the most important part of the bodily parts. If other parts are cut off from the body, a man can continue his life, but if the mouth is cut off, one cannot live. Therefore, this most important part of the body of the Lord is called the sitting place of the Brahmanas, who are inclined to the Vedic wisdom. One who is not inclined to the Vedic wisdom, but to mundane affairs, cannot be called a Brahmana, even if he is born of a Brahmana family or father. To have a Brahmana father does not qualify one as a Brahmana. The main qualification of a Brahmana is to be inclined to the Vedic wisdom. The Vedas are situated on the mouth of the Lord, and therefore anyone who is inclined to the Vedic wisdom is certainly situated on the mouth of the Lord, and he is a Brahmana. This inclination towards Vedic wisdom is also not restricted to any particular caste or community. Anyone from any family and from any part of the world may become inclined to the Vedic wisdom, and that will qualify him as a real Brahmana. A real Brahmana is the natural teacher or spiritual master. Unless one has Vedic knowledge, one cannot become a spiritual master. The perfect knowledge of the Vedas is to know the Lord, the personality of Godhead, and that is the end of Vedic knowledge, or Vedanta. One who is situated in the impersonal Brahman and has no information of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may become a Brahmana, but he cannot become a spiritual master. It is said in the Padma Purana, Chat karma nipuno vipro mantras tantra visharadaha avaishnavo gururna syad vaishnavak shapacho guruhu. An impersonalist can become a qualified Brahmana, but he cannot become a spiritual master unless and until he is promoted to the stage of a Vaishnava, or a devotee of the personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya, the great authority of Vedic wisdom in the modern age, stated, Kiba vipra kiba nyasi shudra keninoi, ye Krishna tattva veta, se guru hoy. A person may become a Brahmana, or a Shudra, or a sannyasi, but if he happens to be well versed in the science of Krishna, then he is fit to become a spiritual master. The qualification then of a spiritual master is not to be a qualified Brahmana, but to be well versed in the science of Krishna. One who is conversant with Vedic wisdom is a Brahmana. And only a Brahmana who is a pure Vaishnava and knows all the intricacies of the science of Krishna can become a spiritual master. Text 31. Thereafter, the power of protection was generated from the arms of the gigantic Virat form, and in relation to such power, the Kshatriyas also came into existence by following the Kshatriya principle of protecting society from disturbance of thieves and miscreants. Purport. As the Brahmanas are recognized by their particular qualification of inclination towards the transcendental knowledge of Vedic wisdom, so also the Kshatriyas are recognized by their power to protect society from the disturbing elements of thieves and miscreants. The word anuvrataha is significant. A person who follows the Kshatriya principles by protecting society from thieves and miscreants is called a Kshatriya, not the one who is simply born a Kshatriya. The conception of the caste system is always based on quality and not on the qualification of birth. Birth is an extraneous consideration. It is not the main feature of the orders and divisions. In the Bhagavad Gita, the qualifications of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are specifically mentioned, and it is understood that all such qualifications are needed before one can be designated as belonging to a particular group. Lord Vishnu is always mentioned in the Purusha in all Vedic scriptures. Sometimes the living entities are also mentioned as Purushas, although they are essentially Purusha Shakti, Parashakti or Paraprakriti, the superior energy of the Purusha. Illusioned by the external potency of the Purusha, the Lord, the false entities, I'm going to read this last part again. It wasn't completely clear. Lord Vishnu is always mentioned as the Purusha in all Vedic scriptures. Sometimes the living entities are also mentioned as Purushas, although they are essentially Purusha Shakti, Parashakti or Paraprakriti, the superior energy of the Purusha. Illusioned by the external potency of the Purusha, the Lord, the living entities falsely think of themselves as the Purusha, although they actually have no qualifications. The Lord has the power to protect. Of the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, the first has the power to create, the second has the power to protect, and the third has the power to destroy. The word Purusha is significant in this verse because the Kshatriyas are expected to represent the Purusha Lord in giving protection to the Prajas, or all those who are born on the land or in the water. Protection is therefore meant for both men and animals. In modern society, the Prajas are not protected from the hands of thieves and miscreants. The modern democratic state, which has no Kshatriyas, is a government of the Vaishyas and Shudras, and not of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, as formerly. Maharaj Yudhishthira and his grandson, Maharaj Parikshit, were typical Kshatriya kings, for they gave protection to all men and animals. When the personification of Kali attempted to kill a cow, Maharaj Parikshit at once prepared himself to kill the miscreant, and the personification of Kali was banished from his kingdom. That is the sign of a Purusha, or representative of Lord Vishnu. According to Vedic civilization, a qualified Kshatriya monarch is given the respect of the Lord because he represents the Lord by giving protection to the Prajas. Modern elected presidents cannot even give protection from theft cases. They're thieves themselves, that's why. And therefore, one has to take protection from an insurance company. Oh, the problems of modern human society are due to the lack of qualified Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and the over-influence of the Vaishyas and Shudras due to the so-called general franchise. I mean, Prabhupada's so brilliant. Huh? His writing is so brilliant.
You know about insurance companies all those years ago, it's amazing.
No, they have insurance companies, don't you know? And the motto of the main insurance company, Indian insurance company, is Yoga Kshema Vaham Yaham. Did you know that? Yeah. This is why it's so hard to spread Krishna consciousness sometimes in India, because they think they know it all. Yoga Kshema Vaham Yaham. I protect what they have and preserve what they, or make up what they lack and preserve what they have. That's it comes right from the Bhagavad Gita, and they call it, that's their motto of the Indian, I don't remember the name of it, the Indian Insurance Company of India or something like that. The so-called general franchise. I'm going to read this last sentence, it's so good. The problems of modern human society are due to the lack of qualified brahmanas and kshatriyas and the over-influence of the Vaishyas and Shudras due to the so-called general franchise. Everyone's means of livelihood, 32. Everyone's means of livelihood, namely production of grains and their distribution to the prajas, was generated from the thighs of the Lord's gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such activities are called Vaishyas. Purport. Human society's means of living is clearly mentioned here as Visha, or agriculture, and the business of distributing agricultural products, which involves transport, banking, and so on. Industry is an artificial means of livelihood, and large-scale industry especially is the source of all the problems of society. In the Bhagavad Gita also the duties of the Vaishyas who are engaged in Visha are stated as cow protection, agriculture, and business. We have already discussed that the human being can safely depend on the cow and agricultural land for his livelihood. And now what do you have? The large-scale industry, the problem. Now you have what? You know, the high-tech companies, which are just, what are they selling? Any takers, any ideas? What are they selling?
Nothing.
They're selling influence. They're selling influence. They find out, you know, what they like, and then they send out, you know, little algorithms and things to people who like the certain things, and then the big companies, they buy them, and then they, you know, target audience. And what is that called? Engineering consent. Engineering consent. It's called advertisement. In engineering consent. That's what advertising used to be called in the beginning. And this is just a high, you know, subtle, very subtle. Now they're doing things like, you know, subliminal advertising. You don't even know it's happening. You know, it's like inside the picture that you're watching, and they're entertaining you. They've got these, you know, pulses coming. I mean, so. What was it you said? Matt was telling me how now they're thinking of this. Five.
The 5G.
5G network.
The Internet of Things. It's just going to be, instead of just having data and cell service, it's going to be just a really high frequency Wi-Fi band that goes everywhere. And so they're creating these machines that, because the frequency is only a short range, they have to create these machines that push it to everyone and everywhere. So they're not quite sure the effect on the human body.
We'll find out. God, I hope I'm not around before that happens. And then they'll put implants in the brain, and you can get whatever you want and control whatever you want just through the implants. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to switch you on and off.
Yeah, Elon Musk was talking about it in a recent interview. straw from your phone to your brain is really slow. So it's very slow connection. So with the new networks, they're just gonna integrate it into your mind.
As soon as you're born, they'll implant it.
Yeah. The exchange of produce, then the next step is, they'll genetically engineer the mind so it comes out like that. The exchange of produce by banking and transportation is a branch of this type of living. The Vaishyas are divided into many subsections. Some of them are called Kshetri, or landowners. Some are called Krishana, or land tillers. Some of them are called Tilavanik, or grain raisers, and some of them are called Gandhavanik, or merchants in spices, and some are called Suvarnamanik, or merchants in gold and banking. The Brahmanas are the teachers and spiritual masters. The Kshatriyas protect the citizens from the hands of thieves and miscreants, and the Vaishyas are in charge of production and distribution. The Shudras, the unintelligent class of men who cannot work independently by performing any of the above-mentioned activities, are meant to earn their livelihood by serving the three higher classes. Formerly, the Brahmanas were given all the necessities of life by the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas because they had no time to spend making a living. The Kshatriyas would collect taxes from the Vaishyas and Shudras, but the Brahmanas were exempt from paying income tax or property tax. That system of human society was so nice that there were no political, social, or economic upheavals. The different castes or varna classifications are therefore essential for maintaining a peaceful human society. What a purport. My gosh. Hare Krishna. Okay. We're going to stop here. Hare Krishna. It's almost 9 o'clock. Or almost 8 o'clock, sorry. And we'll have reflections. This is a very deep reading. Yes, Bhaktamat, please.
So, I can't remember the first word, but Prabhupada made the Shudra that was killing the cow. And I think it was from the first canto.
Yes.
It was the white bull.
Yeah.
And I missed what they said the 3 legs were broken on that bull. Do you know what the 3 legs were?
Yeah, there are 4 pillars of religion. That bull represents the religion, the personified religion, Dharma. And there's 4 pillars that the religion stands on: cleanliness, truthfulness, mercy, and austerity.
Okay.
Those are the 4 pillars. And it's not exactly that all of them go at one and then another one. They all go down, but at the end there's only one left, and it's not full. Even the truthfulness has gone down in other ages. But at the end there's only one left. In the Kali Yuga there's only one left, and now it's like hanging on the thread. I think, the election of Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court kind of, finally broke the...
So the last one's austerity? Or
Truth.
Truth. Oh.
There's still a little bit of truthfulness.
A little bit truth left.
And that word, Vishas?
Vaishyas.
Is that where we get visa from? It sounded like almost the same thing.
No, it's something else. There's another word for visa. Permission to go from one place to another. There's another word for it. There is a word in Sanskrit for that. I can't remember what it is offhand. Yes, Radharaman, our local Brahmana.
I have a question on something that Prabhupada said in one talk where it's talking about the qualification of spiritual master. It says, one who is conversant with Vedic wisdom Brahmana who's a pure Vaishnava and knows all the intricacies of the science of Krishna can become a spiritual master.
Yeah.
So my question is, Maharaj, what does that refer to when Prabhupada says
The intricacies. It means the details of the source. In other words, we're hearing about the universal form, but unless we can connect that with Krishna, in other words, a Brahmana may have this information, but unless one has the details, intricate details about, Krishna and what his world is, what the relationships are in that world, how the things that are going on here are reflections of that world, and acceptance and knowledge of the relationships of all those things, and how to go back, how to awaken that desire. Unless one has all that information, he's not a Vaishnava. He may be Brahmana, but he's not a Vaishnava. I mean, one way of looking at it is Param Brahma. If we have knowledge, increasive knowledge of the Parabrahman, then we're a Vaishnava. If you just know Brahman, then you can be a Brahmana. Brahmana janatiti Brahmana. Brahma janatiti Brahmana. If you know Brahman, then you're a Brahmana. But if you know Krishna, then you can be a Vaishnava. Or Vishnu. Yes, Shamagori. Who defeated us soundly today with your king. Go ahead.
This process of creation has been described 3 times in the Bhagavatam.
Yes.
And,
in the first canto, second canto, and now third canto.
Yes.
Yes.
And there is always a little bit of addition to
Yes.
it. And what I find the most striking in that process, not only the senses are created, but a demigod who controls and oversees the senses, and somehow they sort of proprietors in some ways. So therefore there is a proper use of those things, and if it's not used properly, then there is a consequence, and it's overseen by those demigods.
Exactly.
So there is a proper use of the ear, a proper use of the eyes, a proper use of everything.
Yeah, they say laws of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And Prabhupada used to say, if there's a law, there must be a lawgiver.
Yeah.
And that was one of the purports, and one of the things in the purport is that these things are not happening automatically. Well, there was that one statement, very strong statement, that was, headed in the direction that you were saying, or represented it. Let me see if I can remember what it was. I can't remember exactly what it was. We'd have to go back and look. That'll take some time.
But what is interesting is that that word partial is practically in every verse. That the demigods invest partial power of hearing, partial power of seeing, partial.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, why is it?
It's partial because the living entity is restricted. The living entity has spiritual senses, and those spiritual senses are capable of perceiving the Lord and the spiritual world, because they're part of the internal energy.
Mm-hmm.
But while they're under the influence of all they're then they're only allowed partial perception. Therefore they're controlled. They're not free, conditioned. Partial means conditioned. Yes, Matt?
Roddy has a reflection.
Rati.
She says, I like how Srila Prabhupada labeled the prestigious PhD to be nothing but a flowering certificate. If I heard it correctly, that is.
You heard it exactly correctly. We've been having this kind of conversation over the last couple of days about the conflict, not the conflict, but the differences of opinions about the editing. And it was so clear in that purport, and the persons who are kind of stirring up the controversy are PhDs. Yeah, and they're thinking they're superior. They're thinking they know better than Jayadvaita Maharaj, who was editing for like 40 years and who got exalted, literally exalted by Srila Prabhupada at different times from 1970 all the way to 1977, and who respected him, who trusted him, who said Jayadvaita means parampara, and he blesses him to be able to, edit properly, and all these, exaltations that Prabhupada is giving to Jayadvaita Maharaj, because he's a devotee, a pure devotee, no doubt, And now these PhDs are trying to, how to confuse what he's doing, his devotional service. And Prabhupada never took back that service. I was there when Prabhupada left in 1977. For the last month he was present, and he was still talking. When I was there, he was still talking. He had all opportunities to tell Jayadvaita Maharaj, no more edits after I leave, and he never did. He never took back that service, and he and Dravida have loyally continued that process until you can listen to how clear these purports are now. The first, second, and third cantos particularly are the ones that had to be adjusted, because they were edited by more than one person. But beginning the sixth canto, they were edited only by Jayadvaita Maharaj. And when we get there, you'll see, when you're reading all these different devices and books, it's almost the same. There's very little change, very little. Because he's doing that editing after the sixth canto, which is, I just realized this today, I have to put this forward to the devotees who are making their arguments about this big debate that may come up. I wondered about it because I was going through them. When I'm doing this is about the third, fourth time I've gone through the Bhagavatam in the last 5 years. And I wondered about that because I was helping Dravida after some time, and I was finding things, especially things in the Veda base. But anyway, I was finding things. Then I came to the sixth canto and couldn't find hardly anything. So I asked Dravida why that is. And he said, well, that's because Jayadvaita Maharaj was the only editor. And that interview, or that discussion, when Tamal Krishna Maharaj suggested to Prabhupada, well, what you're doing now, and this was in 1977, is edited by Jayadvaita Maharaj. So Jayadvaita Maharaj should be the one to, check to make sure everything. And Prabhupada said yes. And in that conversation, he said, the latest work that he's editing is now only he's doing that editing. So that confirmed, in my mind, what Dravida said, that after the sixth canto, it was all Jayadvaita Maharaj. Therefore, he was the most qualified to correct the Gita, which had the most mistakes in it. Now, this group of PhDs are doing an edit of the verses, which they say will conclusively prove, how it should be edited in order to be unimpeachable. And Jayadvaita Maharaj says Well, yes, but that's a very small percentage of the text. Not only that, it's not the most important part of the text, because Prabhupada emphasized his purports as being more important than the text. And therefore he gave permission to the original, editors to take verses from Gita, Gita, whatever, Gita, what is that? Publishing house and Gita Press, or Dr. Radhakrishna's translation, and they put some of those in, and one of them was Mayavan. And Prabhupada didn't take it so seriously. He was interested in the purports, because that explains what the verses mean. Therefore, the editors are not very, frankly, they're not very interested in having a debate with these people. Yeah.
Jiva Goswami established in the Tattva Sandarbha that Bhagavatam is Shruti.
Shruti. Mm.
I'm just wondering whether Prabhupada's purport would be Shruti.
No, Prabhupada's purports are not Shruti, but in Prabhupada's purports there is a quote that confirms that the Bhagavatam is Shruti. And I will have to find that. Oh, this is going to take me too long. See, I made a file of the quotes that I didn't use in this year's offering, and I forgot to transfer them over to the notes for next year's offering. And in that, there is a statement that the Bhagavatam is eternal. Those aren't the exact words. The exact words make it clear that it's Shruti. But I'll have to look it up. It'll take me too long. What else? Oh, Vaishnava sages. Yes, Priya Kund.
Just a question, Maharaj. We see in several places in the Bhagavad Gita and the part of the Bhagavatam that the Brahmins refer to the head of society, but here particularly the mouth.
Mouse in the head.
That's all, it's just a simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just more specific, and it means that the Brahmins eat on behalf of the Lord.
Okay.
I mean, we'll hear more. It's not finished, It takes, everything's there, and it's still not awakening. And then, anyway, we'll come to it very soon. Maybe tomorrow night, next night for sure.
So all this will become awakened only with Brahman coming to, right?
When the consciousness comes.
Because consciousness was already established.
Yes, it's something more. It's something more than just the consciousness. It's the. I can't remember. We'll have to hear. We'll hear it directly tomorrow or the next night. What verse are we on now? 20? No, 30.
It's on 32.
33. The next one is service. This may come later. That part may come in. Yeah, I think it is. It's like you were saying, in each description it comes out more details. I think that detail may come out in Kapila Dev's. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because it doesn't, so far it doesn't say that the universal form comes to action, you know?
Yeah.
You're talking about another section where that happens. I'm just looking through 7th chapter. I'll tell you, this is really deep stuff. The Lord is a super soul that's situated in every living being's heart. Why then to the living entities' activities result in misfortune and misery? Anyway. Yeah. Anyway. What did we say? 33, that's where we are, huh? Or 36?
Finish at 33, with 33 tomorrow.
33 tomorrow. Okay. All right, what else? The reflection I had was that this is so deep and so inconceivable that for anybody to think that they can understand everything about the Lord is just wishful thinking. At best, foolishness. And I heard Gopi Paranadhara say something very nice. He said, inconceivable doesn't mean that we can't conceive anything of the Lord. It means that no one can conceive everything of the Lord. It means we, according to our capacity, we can conceive of enough to go back to Godhead. We can't conceive everything. Not possible. You were thinking about that. You were talking about that earlier.
So we just conceive enough according to our own
Capacity.
specific capacity.
Yes. Yes.
And not only that, but however much the Lord agrees to reveal himself, like in the same purport to that PhD
Yes.
scenario. The Lord can reveal himself only to a person who is submissive and engages in his transcendental loving service.
Yes.
So therefore it can be revealed beyond our capacity to understand.
Yeah.
Because on our own strength we can't understand anything.
Bhaktya mama bijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvata. And then in the 11th chapter of the Gita, there's a very interesting point made in those verses and purports where, you know, after Arjuna sees the universal form, he says he can't tolerate it, and then he's about ready to lose consciousness, and then he says, I can't take this is too much, and then let me see your real form. And then he goes to the four-arm form and then to the two-arm form. And then Krishna says to him, Manusha Rupa, Manushanam Rupa. Those words are used. Because sometimes they think that the form of Krishna, the four-arm and two-arm form, are coming from the universal form. That's how they interpret it. But in the verse, in the Sanskrit itself, it's very clear that this is the form, the source form. And then he says, you can't understand this form, you know, by austerity and this and that, all these different things. This is the most difficult form to see. He says demigods are trying to see this form. Therefore, Krishna has given us, and Prabhupada has given us the most intimate knowledge, even though we're not qualified at all. Matter of fact, most of our activities in this life has disqualified us. And He's given us anyway. Amazing. Yeah. We met a pure devotee. We met Prabhupada. That's it. These purports are just this is what gets me. You know, there's all these module and different kinds of courses and classes and seminars and to better understand Prabhupada's, but the direct words of Prabhupada are so powerful and so potent and so revealing. I can't see how fiddling with it is going to make it more clear. I can't see it. What?
Yeah, I find that when there is these courses and seminars, that there's the tendency of bringing mundane ideas in.
Yeah, to make it more acceptable,
more
interesting, acceptable to the people, rather than bringing them up by giving them the sauce, the real thing,
Even making mistakes, encouraging people to read the cantos in a different order.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's right there in writing.
Even some mistakes, actually.
Yeah. So these things, this has to be brought out, But my idea is not to bring this out with some kind of campaign against this or against that. It's just to read and see what the effect is. And it's happening. Here's the Exhibit A, right here. We got Exhibit B, Hannah. You meet her, you really would be amazed. She's incredible. The way she's taking it, what she's understanding, her questions, the depth of her understanding. I mean, it blew me away. And many other people too. Even the Indian-bodied people who know a lot of Sanskrit and this and that, they're just like, in my birthday, she spoke spontaneously. She didn't write something. And she spoke, and everybody was like, there was a brahmachari, disciple of Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, who walked into the thing. He's like a guest, cameo appearance or whatever you want to call it. And he had these two brahmacharis, remember? And they were from New York, when they were on the part of the Sankirtan party in New York. And, and then, brahmacharis, like very strict, Bhakti Prakash Maharaj, very strict, the author of the Brahmachari handbook. And then she started to speak. And I looked at one of the brahmacharis and went like this, and he went like that. And he said, yes, Maharaj, this is what we need. You got to come over to New York. This is the kind of thing we need, We got to make devotees like this. I thought that was very telling. It was very telling.
And she just comes to the readings.
Yeah, and that's all she's done. Just come to the readings and hear straight. And she's heard, 12th canto, the whole Bhagavad Gita, and the first 3 cantos of the Bhagavatam.
Now she leads sometimes
Kirtan?
Mangal Arati and...
Wow.
Yeah, I was in there and she was singing and... Yeah.
Fearless. Amazing.
Helping her to gyro.
Amazing. She just took like a fish takes to water, like she's been there for a long time before. Those are the persons we're looking for. We're not looking to, try to, change the Mayavadis or, the mass of people. We're looking for we're looking for us. And they're out there. They're out there. Definitely. Okay, we're going to stop now. It's 20 after 8. Hare Krishna. Thank everyone out there in cyberspace for coming and attending and listening to all these wonderful reflections and the deep analysis of the material creation and what it means to us. And we hope that you're enlivened and that you will continue to hear and chant with us and, share Prabhupada's wonderful purports, direct with your friends and whoever else, and we can spread this knowledge from Wisteria College. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo.